So that in itself should say, well, let's move on to the next era of transportation. Unfortunately, we've had little progress in reaching agreement with this administration, with the Senate, and even to some extent within the House, on funding of a new transportation bill. The lack of political will has caused a delay. It's caused the whole process and movement to just come to a grinding halt. Now, we've moved a bill through subcommittee. We had 2 years of hearings in 07, 08, and early part of 09. We had reports by 2 commissions, the National Transportation Policy and Revenue Commission and the National Transportation Finance Commission, each established independently under the Safety Lou Bill of 2005. Don Young of Alaska then was chair. I was ranking member at the time. We said that for the future of transportation, we need a commission. We need an independent view outside of the establishment of the House and the Senate and outside of the executive branch to independently evaluate the needs, the choke points, the congestion of this country, how to unlock that, how to restructure the delivery of transportation programs on the federal side, and also how to finance the future of transportation. And those 2 commissions did their work over a 2-year period of time, and they came to a remarkable confluence of ideas separately, but concurrently, that we need to invest $450 billion over the next 6 years in our surface transportation needs for all modes. The annual investment level, said the Transportation Policy Commission, should be in the range of $225 to $340 billion a year by all levels of government over the next 50 years, including the private sector. The need is to upgrade all of our highways, our bridges, public transit, our freight rail, intercity passenger rail. And that level of investment, said both commissions, is only to bring that portfolio of transportation to a state of good repair, meaning getting rid of the potholes, the bumps in the roads, to bring obsolete bridges up to a state of current capacity needs, to bring structurally deficient bridges, to replace them, to make them safe. But to go beyond that, we need an additional annual investment of $85 billion a year. That means from the current transportation portfolio, we're $150 billion short. So the National Transportation Finance Commission said that without changes to current policy, the revenues collected at all levels of government will fall a third short of the needs, a third short of the $200 billion needed a year to maintain and improve our highway and transit systems. And that if we continue at current funding levels over the next 25 years, we'll fall $1.3 trillion short. Those are numbers just mind-boggling. What does that mean in real world? It means an additional investment of $106 billion each year over current level of funding to maintain highway and bridge conditions, to upgrade highways and bridges to beyond state of good repair to capacity needed. But just state of good repair, just fixing our highways and roadways so that people aren't dodging potholes and avoiding bridges, and that trucks aren't avoiding bridges as they do in Oregon. They travel 125 miles at the very top of the state, travel 125 miles east through the Sierra Mountains, and then another 150 miles south, and then cross back into eastern Oregon to avoid a stretch of bridges that is so functionally and structurally deficient that the trucks could likely fall down with the bridge, as happened in Minnesota. That's not being efficient. That's not serving the public. That is increasing the cost of delivering goods and the time it takes and the increasing cost to our overall economy. In transit, the Federal Transit Administration recently reported a backlog of $80 billion needed to bring the nation's top 50 transit systems into a state of good repair. And in this audience and in this country, there's no one who knows that better than Bev Scott, Dr. Scott, from the public transit system in Rhode Island, where I first knew her, to Sacramento, where she managed the Sacramento transit system, and now you're so fortunate to have her here in Atlanta, and what a great witness you were at our hearings in January of '09. She's the one who said, look, when you're doing this stimulus, it's wonderful to have the investment to buy new buses and new facilities. But at the same time that we're taking delivery of new buses, you don't want us laying off drivers because we don't have the financing to keep them on staff. So please provide us some funding for the operations of systems. And that testimony, John, you know, you heard a lot of the discussions in caucus. That was compelling. That made the argument. So it was also here in Atlanta that buses were driving around the city with red X on the side, saying these are routes that might be cut unless we get funding. Now, I thought that was a terrific idea. Mark them with an X. You're going to lose this bus. You're going to lose this route. You're going to lose this system if you don't invest. And I thought, no, maybe we ought to do that to all our highways and our bridges. You're going to lose this lane mile of highway. You're going to lose this bridge if you don't invest in it. People, businesses, customers, shippers across the nation pay a stunning cost for congestion, a congestion tax. Every year, the Texas Transportation Institute does a survey of congestion in America's major metropolitan areas, the 75 largest metropolitan areas. Last year, their report put the cost of congestion, I called it a congestion tax, at $87 billion, meaning that people in those metropolitan areas, including Atlanta, are spending 40 to 140 hours a year, 40 to 140 hours a year longer in their cars than they would if they could drive at posted highway speeds. They're buying 4, 5, 6 tanks of gasoline more than they would if they could drive at posted highway speeds. And it's a moral issue as well, because the name of the Lord is taken more often in traffic on weekdays than in churches on Sundays. You know, you've been there. In Minneapolis, 3 years ago, the legislature was considering an increase in the user fee, the gas tax. And it really is a user fee. The users of the system pay to make the improvements on the highway programs. And it goes into the Federal Highway Trust Fund. In Minnesota, the legislature, and in preparation, something like your council, the Minnesota 2020, a group of business people, shippers, consumers, truckers, academics from the University of Minnesota, labor groups, all got together, formed a study group called Minnesota 2020. And they evaluated the costs of transportation and the cost of congestion in the Twin Cities area. General Mills spent $694 million a year shipping its Betty Crocker and Wheaties and other products to market. But for every mile an hour their trucks travel below the speed limit, it costs General Mills $2 million in overtime charges to drivers and late delivery fees to customers. United Parcel Service, at my request, did a survey of their trucks nationwide. For every 5 minutes delay that UPS experiences, it costs them $100 million. Similarly, for overtime charges for drivers, late delivery fees, there is a cost, a tangible, real, demonstrable cost to congestion. Wasted time sitting in traffic when things could be moving better. So we have to deal with this. Recently, I saw an article in the New Yorker where they were discussing partisan gridlock that has crippled the ability of Congress to provide solutions to the nation's needs. A freshman senator said of the current state of the Senate, "Sit and watch us for 7 days. Just watch the floor. You know what you'll see happening? Nothing." When I'm in the chair, I sit there thinking, I wonder what they're doing in China right now. Well, I can tell that senator what they're doing in China right now. In 1987, China had 167 miles of interstate quality freeway. Today, they have 25,000 lane miles, 6-lane miles of interstate quality freeway. I happen to drive on 150-mile stretch of it, to the city of Laiwu from Jinan. I'm sure familiar names to all of you. They were to me, too. Until the steel mill in Laiwu bought into an iron ore mine in my district because of China's hunger for iron ore to produce steel. There it was, 6 lanes, divided, access-controlled superhighway, bumper-to-bumper traffic, carrying everything from pigs and chickens to people and freshly produced pipe and I-beam and rebar. Their plan is to have 52,000 miles of interstate quality freeway in less than 10 years. China has invested 9% of its gross domestic product in doubling its capacity. They have doubled the capacity of their major ports, Guangzhou, Huangzhou, and Qingdao, and also Hong Kong. They have built 6 new airports, modernized 35 existing airports to have 12,500-foot runways. Here in Atlanta, you have one runway at 11,000, the other, and one at 10,000. The other 2 runways are 9,000 feet. And you're planning, I just got a Recovery Act grant to build the 5th runway and the lighting and quality improvements. But that's what they're doing. And they're building 47 new airports in the interior of China, where they want to keep the people from moving to the coastal towns and relocate manufacturing to the interior of China. And so they built the Beijing to Lhasa, Tibet railway, high-speed passenger rail, 2,500 miles in 24 hours. The last 500 miles are at 14,000 feet altitude with pressurized passenger cars. Now, who's moving ahead? We or China? They're completing an 800-mile rail line from Beijing to Shanghai. That's the distance of Boston to Richmond on the eastern seaboard. We have 35 million people in that corridor. China has roughly 50 million people in that corridor. You'll be able to travel Beijing to Shanghai in 4 hours at 220 miles an hour, steel-on-steel, high-speed rail. Now, you might fly from Boston to Richmond in 4 hours, but you're not going to travel that fast on rail.